Gunshots echoed through Maple Ridge Park, shattering the peaceful afternoon. Hannah Anderson, a seemingly ordinary single mother, found herself surrounded by the ruthless Dark Knights biker gang, their leader Victor Steele confident she'd submit to their intimidation. But these outlaws had unknowingly targeted the deadliest Marine sniper the Corps had ever produced, a woman whose skills had toppled threats across 3 continents. What happened next would leave the entire town of Eagles Point speechless, as Hannah fought not just to protect her daughter, Sophie, but to dismantle a hidden conspiracy that threatened every family in the community. If you want to see how this extraordinary woman took on the deadliest threats imaginable, stay tuned till the end. Remember to subscribe to our channel to support more gripping stories and never miss an incredible tale of courage and resilience. Sarah Walker sat on a wooden bench at Greenfield Park, the autumn sun slanting through tall oaks and maples that scattered orange and red leaves. A soft breeze rustled the trees occasionally, carrying the delighted squeals of children from the playground. Sarah's daughter Emily, a bright-eyed 6-year-old, was pumping her legs on a swing, giggling as she tried to go higher than the other kids. Sarah watched her closely. Even though she wore the calm expression of a middle school teacher, used to the everyday hustle of children, a subtle tension in her gaze hinted there was more behind her composed exterior. At 39, Sarah projected the approachable warmth of a beloved educator. Her brown hair was pulled into a loose ponytail, and a pile of ungraded essays rested beside her personal narratives, assigned to her 7th grade English class. While she usually found grading cathartic that afternoon, her pen hovered over the papers, her senses suddenly alerted to a distant rumble. She heard them before she saw them, the snarling sound of motorcycle engines rolling in from the east end of the park. Sarah's posture stiffened. After leaving the military 3 years ago, she had picked Greenfield a small town for its peace, but the heavy growl of those engines spoke of disruption. She set her stack of papers aside, scanning the park's entrance. 5 customized Harley-Davidsons rumbled into view, each bike ridden by a member of the Iron Serpents, a notorious motorcycle gang. Their leader, Victor Stone, Holt, led the formation. His features were as hard as his nickname. A network of scars ran from his left cheekbone down to his jaw, accentuating a predatory grin. People in Greenfield had already heard rumors about Stone's gang thefts, forced protection fees, unsolved assaults in neighboring towns, but few imagined they would show up at a public park on a mild autumn day. Emily on the swing called out, "Mom, look how high I can go." Sarah forced a reassuring smile. "That's great, Em. Be careful, please," she said, her voice steady, betraying none of the adrenaline shooting through her veins. Other parents began to notice the bikers and corralled their children away from the playground. Some retreated to the far edges of the park. A wave of unease spread as Stone dismounted and marched across a drift of fallen leaves. 2 of his henchmen, warding Ghost, flanked him at precise angles. Their practiced formation suggested a background beyond simple biker bravado, something Sarah recognized from her own past. Sarah stood motioning for Emily to come closer. The little girl hopped off the swing, confusion crossing her face at the abrupt end to her playtime. Within moments, Stone's group had fanned out effectively, blocking the main exit to the parking lot. Even Jack Roswell, owner of the beloved diner on Main Street, looked uneasy as he walked his terrier by the fence. He fumbled for his phone, only to catch Sarah's quick warning glance. She gave an almost imperceptible shake of her head. "Not yet," Stone approached. "Nice day for a stroll in the park, huh?" he said, voice deceptively friendly. "We've heard Greenfield is a cozy town, but it could use a bit more security." Sarah placed Emily behind her, scanning her peripheral vision for potential vantage points and escape routes. "We prefer to let the police handle security here," she replied, sounding perfectly calm. "Police?" Ward sneered. "Not enough of them in a town like this, and I hear they're stretched thin. Accidents happen all the time." Sarah saw how Stone's right hand drifted toward his leather vest, likely resting near a concealed handgun. She repressed a surge of anger. "We have a good department," she said mildly. "Chief Edison is more than capable." Stone chuckled. "I'm sure he is. But you know, if people want real safety, they might consider a monthly protection plan. We do a better job than the cops." Faster response. "You got a daughter, right?" Emily clutched Sarah's hand, pressing her face against her mother's hip. That final remark targeting a child made something cold settle into Sarah's spine. Once the Marine Corps had trained her in advanced sniper tactics and taught her to remain composed in the face of threats. Yet no training could quell the primal fury of a mother who realized her child was being threatened. "How much is this plan?" Sarah asked, voice calm, though her heart thundered. Stone pretended to think it over. "Let's call it $2,000 a month for you. Cheap price for peace of mind. First payment is due tomorrow, Ms. Walker." That menacing grin returned as he stepped closer. "Don't bother telling the cops. If you do, the price goes way up. You can't afford not to pay." Ward and Ghost snickered, turning away as if to leave. Stone held Sarah's gaze a moment longer before pivoting on his heel. The Harleys roared back to life, the gang riding off as quickly as they had arrived. A hush settled over the park, broken only by nervous whispers of the few adults who had lingered. Jack Roswell approached cautiously, phone in hand. "Sarah, I'll call the chief right now," he said. "They can't." "Please, Jack." Sarah interrupted. "Give me 24 hours. I have an idea." She glanced at the fleeing dust cloud in the distance. "But if things get out of control, call them." Emily looked up at her eyes brimming with worry. "Mom, will they come back?" Sarah knelt, placing both hands gently on her daughter's shoulders. "Maybe," she said softly, "but they won't get what they want." A flicker of confusion crossed Emily's face. "But they look so scary." Sarah smiled, tucking a strand of Emily's hair behind her ear. "Never judge a book by its cover. Sometimes the scariest-looking people have no idea who they're up against." She clasped her daughter's small hand. "Let's go home." On the way to her car, Sarah noticed two men on motorcycles loitering at the far edge of the park. She recognized them as part of Stone's group, one pretending to wipe dust off his bike, while the other checked his phone. Surveillance. They wanted to ensure she didn't run straight to the police station. Sarah fastened Emily into her booster seat, glancing at the rearview mirror to mark the watchers' positions. The drive home took twice as long because Sarah deliberately altered her route. She spotted at least one black SUV trailing from a distance. Sloppy, she thought anyone with half her training could shake that tail in minutes. But she maintained a slow, law-abiding pace through Greenfield's residential streets, pulling into the garage of a modest single-family home. It was a quiet corner lot with a wide lawn, a home she had specifically chosen for multiple vantage points and easy escape routes, though she hoped never to use them for such reasons. When they were inside, Sarah locked the door and engaged a set of hidden security latches. Emily played in the living room, turning on cartoons while Sarah slipped into her home office, carefully removing a false panel in the back of the closet. She retrieved a satellite phone that she'd kept from her days in the Marines, one of several fallback methods in case her past ever caught up with her. She dialed a number from memory. It rang twice. A familiar voice came on the line. "Logan Davis speaking." Sarah inhaled. "Logan, it's Sarah." A pause. "You need intel." "Yes," Sarah said. "A motorcycle gang called the Iron Serpents, led by Victor Stone." "Holt. They're extorting people around here. They threatened my daughter." Her voice tightened on the last words. Logan exhaled sharply. "I'll make some calls, see what I can dig up. Heard some rumors about them, shifting large shipments through small towns, hooking up with bigger fish. Keep your head down, they've got ex-military in their ranks." "Thank you," Sarah said. "And Logan, if you find anything about a potential connection to bigger organizations, cartels, private militias, who knows, let me know immediately." The line clicked off. Sarah stared at the phone, an old tension coiling in her gut. She had deliberately chosen a peaceful life after leaving the service. She became a teacher to create stability for Emily. But old ghosts, it seemed, refused to stay buried. For dinner, Sarah kept the routine calm and normal. Emily deserved to feel safe in her own home. They ate macaroni and cheese, watched a short cartoon, and went over Emily's spelling homework. Anyone peering through the windows would see an ordinary single mom and her 6-year-old daughter living a quiet evening. But beneath that domestic tranquility, Sarah weighed her next moves. Just after Emily's bedtime, the doorbell rang. Sarah checked a hidden camera feed on her phone. Standing on the porch was Detective Naomi Morgan, a no-nonsense officer from Greenfield PD, who had been investigating the Iron Serpent's earlier misdeeds. Sarah unlatched the locks and opened the door. "I heard you had a run-in with Stone's gang at the park," Morgan said bluntly. "Jack Roswell gave me a heads up," Sarah nodded, stepping aside. "Come in." But keep your voice down. My daughter's asleep. Morgan crossed the threshold. What did they want? Protection fees, Sarah replied, shutting the door. And they threatened Emily if I talked to the police. Morgan's expression hardened. So you are talking to the police. Good. I'm building a case, but so far everyone is too intimidated to speak up. Sarah hesitated, remembering Stone's warning. They'll be back tomorrow expecting a payout, but I need time, just 24 hours to handle this my way. Morgan studied her. Look, I appreciate your willingness to help, but I also see in your eyes, there's something you're not telling me. You have more training than an average teacher, don't you? Sarah smiled faintly. Let's just say I'm not as helpless as Stone thinks. Please trust me on this. Detective, if I need backup, I'll call. After Morgan left, Sarah gently tested the hidden panel beneath the living room floor, an arsenal she hoped she'd never have to use. Her old sniper rifle lay disassembled in a case along with handguns and unregistered phones. She exhaled. Tomorrow the Iron Serpents would return, thinking they had cornered a defenseless single mother. They would find someone else entirely. Dawn broke with a fiery glow over Greenfield. A new day carried an undercurrent of dread for those who had witnessed the Iron Serpent's intimidation tactics. While Emily scribbled in her coloring book at the kitchen table, Sarah stared at her phone, waiting for word from Logan. Her sources needed to come through fast. At 7:30, Sarah drove Emily to the elementary school, taking care to notice any watchers. Sure enough, two men on motorcycles shadowed her from a distance. She dropped Emily off with a tight hug and whispered instructions. Remember what we practiced. If anything ever happens, okay? Emily nodded solemnly. I remember, Mom. Run to Mrs. Chang's house, lock the door, and call you on my bracelet phone. Sarah forced a smile. Exactly, but hopefully you'll never need to. She left the school parking lot, making a show of heading to Greenfield Middle School where she taught. She parked in her usual spot, greeting the vice principal and a few students before quietly slipping out a side entrance. Instead of returning to her car, she walked a few blocks, hopped on a borrowed bicycle hidden behind a neighbor's shed, and pedaled back roads to her house. Let the Iron Serpents keep watch on an empty car while she prepared her defenses. By mid-morning, Sarah had set up a network of small cameras around her property, devices that looked like standard security, but delivered high-end military-grade surveillance to her phone. Every few minutes, she'd cycle through the feeds, waiting for the telltale thunder of Harley's Logan, finally called. She answered on the satellite phone. Sarah, you were right. Stone's got connections to a bigger outfit that calls itself Titan Shield. They're rumored to be ex-military contractors who move drugs, guns, maybe even people across state lines. The Iron Serpents do the dirty work, intimidation, local infiltration, that sort of thing. I also found references to Stone receiving advanced weapons. This could get nasty, thanks, Logan. Sarah said, stay on standby in case I need more help. She hung up, feeling the chill of that last revelation. Stone wasn't just a petty criminal, he had serious backing. And if Titan Shield decided to move into Greenfield, the entire town would become a war zone. Sarah's mind flashed to Emily, and a wave of resolve blazed through her. She wouldn't let that happen. At noon, the drone of engines announced the arrival of the Iron Serpents. Sarah's cameras captured them cruising down her quiet street. Stone led, flanked by Ward Ghost and two more riders, Reaper and Nash. They dismounted at the curb with calculated swagger. Sarah stepped onto her front porch, arms folded. The tension in the air was electric. Ward pounded on the porch railing as though to emphasize that they had come to collect. Stone took off his riding glasses. Afternoon, Miss Walker, he said with a predatory smirk. I trust you've had time to think about our little arrangement? Sarah stared at him. I have. The answer is no. Nash let out a low whistle. That's a shame. You see, we went to a lot of trouble to offer you our protection. His tone dripped with mockery. Stone began to circle as though to intimidate from another angle. We know where you work. We know your daughter's school. $2,000 a month might seem like a lot, but think of the alternative. Sarah felt the old lethal calm she had once relied on as a Marine sniper. She had ended dangerous threats in war zones across the globe, men who had done worse than Stone, but each time it was always done under orders and in secrecy. This, on her own turf, defending her home, felt starkly personal, her gaze fixed on Stone. You threaten my daughter again, and you'll regret it. His smile faded. Ward stepped forward, hand inside his leather vest. "Lady, you really want to do this?" A flicker of movement behind them caught Sarah's eye. Two unmarked police cruisers turned onto her street, sirens silent but lights flashing. Detective Morgan and two uniformed officers stepped out. Stone hesitated, scowling. The show of law enforcement forced him to stand down, but he remained defiant. Morgan kept her distance, one hand near her firearm. "Gentlemen, is there a reason you're harassing Ms. Walker?" Stone shrugged. "Just a friendly visit. Enjoying the crisp autumn weather?" Morgan's jaw tightened. Friendly visits usually don't involve half a dozen gang members blocking a driveway. Stone gave Sarah a final glare. "We'll be back, teacher, and next time no cops to bail you out." He motioned to his men, and they mounted their bikes, revving away into the distance, leaving a swirl of tension in their wake. Morgan approached Sarah. "You sure you're all right?" Sarah nodded. "Thanks for arriving when you did." "That was mostly luck," Morgan admitted. "We were on a separate call, but we'll keep watch." She pursed her lips, lowering her voice. "I know you told me you needed time, but after seeing them like this, I'm worried they're escalating." "I know," Sarah said. "Trust me, I'm working on something." That evening, Sarah met Detective Morgan for coffee at Roswell's diner. Jack Roswell, sporting a weary expression, kept looking out the window at every motorcycle that passed. People in Greenfield were on edge. Morgan opened a file. "We've got photos of Stone and his top men. Not just your average gang. They have backgrounds in private security, some with official military training. They've spread out across 3 counties, getting bolder every week." Sarah flipped through the images, Stone's scowling face, Ward's shaved head and menacing tattoos, Ghost's lean figure. Reaper and Nash were barely in their 20s, but both had the hardened look of men who'd seen too much violence. "Do you have anything linking them to Titan Shield?" she asked. Morgan paused. "That name's floated in some informant chatter, but we have no concrete proof." Why Sarah hesitated, "I can't say much, but I know Stone might have backup from a paramilitary group. If they come here, we're looking at more than just motorcycles and extortion." Morgan's lips thinned. "Then we've got bigger problems than I realized." She leaned in. "For what it's worth, I see how you move. You're ex-military, right? You might be the only person in this town who can match them if they bring their best." Sarah gave a mirthless laugh. "Maybe so, but I'd hoped to leave that life behind for good." Morgan nodded. "Life has other plans sometimes." As Sarah walked out of the diner, she spotted 2 iron serpents across the street. They stared at her with open hostility. Sarah's pulse quickened, but she simply got into her car and drove away. She had no desire to cause a public scene that could endanger bystanders, but she also knew the clock was ticking. That night, Sarah put Emily to bed with a gentle kiss. Then she retreated to the basement, where she unlocked a hidden compartment behind a shelf of old textbooks. Inside was a single black case. She opened it, revealing the disassembled sniper rifle she had carried on 3 tours overseas. The stainless steel barrel, the customized scope, and the modular stock lay snug in foam cutouts. The very weapon that had once made her the Marine Corps' most lethal sniper. She inhaled slowly, running her fingertips over the polished metal. Memories flooded back, nights spent perched on rooftops, eyes scanning through a scope for hours, waiting to neutralize high-value targets. She had walked away from that life, determined to raise Emily in a world far removed from violence. But the iron serpents had forced her hand. With meticulous care, Sarah assembled the rifle. Each click and snap into place felt like stepping back into her old self. In a single swirl of motion, she mounted the scope and tested the bolt. The quiet scrape of metal sent adrenaline pulsing through her veins. She was ready. Her phone buzzed a text from Logan. "Heard Titan's Shield might have men heading your way soon. Watch your 6. If you need a team, let me know." Sarah set the phone down. Titan's Shield was even more dangerous than she'd feared. If Stone called them in, Greenfield wouldn't stand a chance. Yet for Sarah, the mere possibility of losing Emily's safe world unleashed a ferocity that overshadowed any fear. She cradled the rifle in her lap. "If they want to fight," she whispered, "they're about to learn who they're really messing with." At sunrise the next day, a cryptic message reached Sarah's phone from an unknown number. "Meet me at Greenfield Park, 10 a.m. Come alone, or your daughter pays." She didn't need a signature to know who had sent it. This time, Stone planned to corner her in the very place they first appeared. Sarah called Morgan. "He wants a meeting at the park. I suspect a trap." Morgan's voice crackled with tension. "We can set up a perimeter, my officers." "No," Sarah interrupted. "He said to come alone. If he sees the police, it'll escalate." "Let me handle this. Just be ready if things go south." At precisely 10 a.m., Sarah arrived at Greenfield Park. The wind picked up, swirling red and gold leaves around the old swings. This time, no children played. The entire park was eerily vacant. Stone stood at the center of the basketball court, flanked by Ward and Ghost. Reaper and Nash were likely lurking elsewhere out of sight. Sarah's heart hammered, but outwardly she was composed, her sniper training in full effect. Stone's grin was as chilling as ever. "Told you we'd be back. So where's my money?" Sarah took 2 steps forward. "I don't have your money." A muscle twitched in Stone's jaw. "Then you've just signed a death sentence." "That's what people in war zones told me," Sarah replied quietly right before they learned otherwise. Ward snorted. "Big talk for a teacher." Sarah merely exhaled and everything happened at once. A faint beep sounded from the smartphone hidden in her jacket pocket. That was Detective Morgan's remote signal confirming SWAT teams and backup were quietly deploying around the park's perimeter, though out of immediate sight, Sarah needed to buy time. But the gang's tension level was high. Ghost stepped closer, brandishing a knife. "You want to see your daughter again, you'll pay up. Or better yet, we'll take her as collateral." Stone snapped. "Shut it! We're not kidnapping kids yet. We just need her to think we will." Sarah's eyes narrowed. The next instant, she lunged, intercepting Ghost's knife hand with a swift disarm. She had practiced 1,000 times in training. In a blur, she twisted his wrist, sending the blade tumbling onto the asphalt. Before Ward could draw his gun, Sarah slammed a forearm into his throat, then pivoted to create distance. Stone backed off, startled. For a fraction of a second, the Iron Serpents hesitated, unaccustomed to a single woman overpowering 2 men. That second was all Sarah needed. She whistled sharply from behind the oak trees. Morgan's carefully placed officers appeared. "Guns drawn, freeze," Morgan yelled, her voice echoing. But Stone and his men were no amateurs. In a lightning move, Stone grabbed Ward's dropped pistol and fired 2 shots into the air to scatter the officers. Ghost scrambled up, rearmed with a handgun from his waistband. They weren't cornered yet. Sarah dove behind the metal slide of the playground, cursing under her breath. She had hoped to end this with minimal violence. The clatter of gunfire from Ward and Ghost answered that hope. Bullets pinged off the metal, and terrified bystanders fled the street. Morgan and her team returned fire, turning the once tranquil park into a battlefield. Sarah spotted Reaper and Nash on a distant hill wielding rifles. So that was the real trap. Stone had placed snipers of his own. The police were pinned down, forced behind vehicles. Sarah's breath steadied as she scanned her vantage points. She might not have the perfect rooftop angle she'd prefer, but she knew the terrain from countless afternoons spent supervising Emily at play. She had studied every slope and vantage out of sheer habit. Crouching low, she maneuvered behind a broad oak tree and raised the compact rifle she'd concealed under a loose jacket. With a calm exhale, she aimed at Nash's silhouette. One controlled shot, Nash toppled sideways, not dead but clearly out of the fight. Reaper ducked for cover. Stone roared in anger, eyes scanning for who had fired that shot. Morgan used the lull to reposition officers, but Ward and Ghost maintained a barrage of suppressive fire. Bullets splintered the wood of the oak. Sarah refused to yield. With a pivot, she lined up her scope on Reaper, neutralizing him with a careful shot to the shoulder. Then she turned her attention to Stone. He had dived behind a picnic table, swearing at his men. Shouts erupted as Morgan's team seized the advantage. Ward took a bullet in the leg and crumpled, howling in pain. Ghost tried to crawl away, only to be tackled by an officer. All the while, Stone remained at large. He sprinted behind a parked SUV, unleashing wild shots. Sarah circled wide, hugging the perimeter fence. The man she wanted was Stone. Cut off the head of the snake. The rest would crumble. Stone emerged from cover, firing at the police, unaware Sarah had flanked him. She pressed the muzzle of her rifle to the back of his vest. "Drop it, Stone." Now he stiffened, fingers still clutching the trigger. A dangerous impulse flickered across his features. For a moment, Sarah thought he might whirl and shoot anyway. Then Morgan appeared, weapon trained on him, flanked by 2 officers. Stone spat on the ground. "Go ahead, shoot me." Sarah's voice was ice cold. "I don't shoot unarmed men." She knocked the pistol from his grip and pinned his arms. Morgan slapped cuffs on him, and it ended as abruptly as it started. The rest of the gang was in disarray. Some unconscious, some wounded, all in custody. An hour later, the park was an active crime scene. Morgan walked up to Sarah. "We've arrested the entire Iron Serpent's crew, but guess what? Half of them are ex-military, plus we found advanced gear in their saddlebags. Weapon mods you don't usually see in local gangs. This is bigger than we thought." Sarah nodded grimly. "Titan's Shield is probably behind that." Morgan surveyed the wreckage. "If Titan's Shield sent them, they'll send more. We'll have to watch the station and the courthouse like hawks." Sarah's phone buzzed a text from Logan. "Confirmed Titan's Shield mobilizing. They'll want stone silence. Expect serious reinforcements." Her heart sank. It was far from over. By the next morning, rumors of Titan Shield mercenaries arriving in Greenfield spread like wildfire. Local businesses boarded up, families fled. The police presence doubled, but everyone felt it wouldn't be enough. Two unmarked SUVs were already spotted near the highwaymen in tactical gear, stepping out with lethal confidence. As the day wore on, more arrived. Titan Shield had indeed come to clean up Stone's mess. Morgan met Sarah at the diner again, pushing a coffee across the counter. "We have a situation. The feds might intervene, but if Titan's Shield is as connected as your friend Logan says, we could be on our own for a while." Sarah braced her elbows on the countertop. "Titan's Shield has ex-Special Forces black market weapons and zero qualms about using them. They'll try to level the entire town if it means destroying evidence of their involvement." Jack Roswell listened from behind the register, fists clenched. "We're not letting them roll in and destroy our home." Morgan rubbed her temples. "Some of the folks here have guns, but no real training. We can't just hand out rifles to volunteers. It'll be a massacre." Sarah inhaled. "We don't fight them head on. That's suicidal. We use guerrilla tactics. We coordinate safe evacuation for families, and we feed Titan. Shield false targets." Morgan studied her with respect and relief. "We'll do it your way." She paused, face softening. "And your daughter, is she safe?" A faint smile. "Emily is at Mrs. Chang's place under watch, and I taught her what to do if things go bad." Sarah's expression hardened. "But I won't let them get anywhere near her." By nightfall, Titan Shield operatives established a perimeter, positioning themselves on rooftops and the outskirts of Greenfield. They moved with frightening synchronization, each operative wearing body armor and armed with automatic rifles. They jammed police radios, set up mobile communication towers, and threatened to choke off the entire town residents who hadn't fled hunkered in basements. But Sarah was no stranger to infiltration. With Morgan's help, she recruited local veterans from the VFW hall, instructing them on choke points and safe zones. She reconfigured the Iron Serpent's old intimidation routes into traps. Streets were blocked with commandeered vehicles, funneling Titan Shield into predictable pathways. Small groups of volunteers patrolled by night. Logan soon arrived, bringing two fellow ex-Marines. They coordinated quietly with Sarah. Detective Morgan fed them partial intelligence gleaned from phone intercepts. Titan Shield's plan, it seemed, was to secure Stone, confiscate all incriminating evidence, linking them to the Iron Serpents, and then vanish. If that required flattening Greenfield, so be it. A standoff brewed. Titan Shield tried a swift strike on the police station, only to be repelled by Logan's team working in tandem with local officers. They attempted a nighttime raid on the elementary school, where they believed certain records were hidden, only to find Sarah waiting atop the roof with a sniper rifle. Several mercenaries ended the night in custody or with bullet wounds, baffled at the skill they faced. Yet for each victory, another wave of mercenaries arrived, and these new arrivals had heavier weaponry. Sarah realized they couldn't outlast Titan Shield indefinitely. They needed a final blow that would force them to retreat. The next day, Morgan got a tip Titan Shield planned a dawn assault on City Hall, where Stone's official records and the gang's confiscated documents were stored in evidence lockers. If they destroyed those files, they might erase all proof of their crimes. Morgan rallied her officers for a stand at City Hall, barricading the windows and setting up vantage points. Sarah joined Logan on the roof, scanning the quiet streets in pre-dawn light. At 5:00 a.m., the growl of SUVs approached. Titan shield operators fanned out advanced night vision goggles, glowing eerie green in the half-light. They opened fire, a barrage on the building. Officers returned fire. Greenfield's final stand had begun. Sarah took a measured breath, exhaled slowly, and squeezed the trigger of her rifle. One Titan shield operative dropped, then another. But they were disciplined. They immediately changed position, returning suppressive fire. Smoke grenades bloomed, obscuring the street in thick haze. Logan barked into the radio. "They're flanking west side. We need backup," Morgan's voice responded. "I'm pinned down in the lobby with 2 wounded. Hurry!" Adrenaline surged in Sarah as she descended from the roof to help. She shouldered her rifle, dashed into the lobby, and found Morgan crouched beside an injured officer. "Medics can't get in," Morgan yelled over gunfire. Sarah peeked out a shattered window. At least 10 Titan shield mercenaries advanced in tight formation. Too many for a simple standoff. She spotted a street-level gas main near the curb. If she could disable it at just the right moment, the pressure might create a diversion, non-lethal, but enough to scatter them. "I have an idea," Sarah told Morgan, who nodded grimly. While Logan covered her from the upper windows, Sarah slipped outside through a side exit. She crawled behind debris nearing the gas main. Her hands moved swiftly, turning the valve halfway, then jamming it with a wedge from her belt kit. The main hissed, a plume of invisible gas venting out. She lobbed a flashbang, precisely igniting the swirling gas with a controlled blast. Not enough to kill, but definitely enough to break Titan Shield's tight assault formation. A deafening whoosh, and the operatives scattered some shouting. Back as a mini fireball erupted. Sarah rushed behind them, picking off 2 more with precise shots to the legs. It was chaos under covering fire from Logan Morgan's. Officers poured out of City Hall making arrests. The mercenaries, disoriented by the blast, were quickly surrounded. Suddenly, headlights cut through the haze. A reinforced SUV barreled down the street. Its tinted windows and heavy armor screamed, "Titan Shield's top brass." Sarah pivoted, raising her rifle, aiming for the tires. Sparks flew, but the vehicle kept coming. Before she could reload, a side door flung open. A man in full tactical gear aimed an assault rifle directly at her. Time slowed to a crawl. She dropped behind a mailbox, bullets whizzing overhead. The soldier advanced methodically. Over her earpiece, she heard Emily's faint voice from the safe house. Morgan must have patched them through. "Mom, are you okay, Mom?" That single word, "Mom," ignited a surge in Sarah. She rolled out from cover, took a knee, and fired a single shot into the soldier's shoulder. He staggered, weapon clattering. She followed with a second shot to the SUV's rear tire, the heavy vehicle swerving into a lamppost. By now, the other Titan Shield operatives realized their mission had failed. City Hall still stood, and they were outmaneuvered. Caught between the police and a cunning ex-sniper, they had nowhere to go. Some tried to run on foot. Others surrendered to Morgan's advancing perimeter. In the end, Greenfield's defenders stood victorious amid drifting smoke. Sarah sagged against the battered mailbox, exhausted. Logan trotted over to ensure she was uninjured. Morgan, panting, gave a weary grin. "They're retreating, and we've got their lead operatives in custody. The entire attempt is on camera." Sarah gently pressed a hand to her earpiece. "Emily, can you hear me? I'm fine." Relief flooded her daughter's voice. "You did it, Mom." Over the following days, federal agents arrived in Greenfield. With Titan Shield's mercenaries captured the evidence from Stone's gang and the testimonies of countless witnesses. The entire criminal operation collapsed. Indictments were handed down at the state and federal levels. Stone tried to flip on Titan Shield for a lighter sentence, but the prosecutor wasn't feeling generous. Detective Morgan found herself leading a multi-jurisdictional task force, recognized as the officer who helped break a major criminal enterprise. Logan quietly departed once the feds took over, leaving behind a simple note to Sarah. "If you ever need me again, you know how to find me." Greenfield slowly returned to normal. Broken windows were repaired. Families who had fled returned to their houses. The local paper hailed Sarah Walker as the bravest teacher in the county. She politely declined interviews, preferring anonymity. One crisp afternoon, Sarah took Emily back to Greenfield Park. The slides and swings had been fixed, fresh mulch spread under the jungle gym. Sunlight streamed through the trees, The chaos of days past, now just a story. Emily squealed with delight, running toward the swing set. Morgan happened to stroll by sipping coffee. She paused to chat with Sarah, who sat on the same bench as before. "You did more for this town than anyone will ever truly know," Morgan said softly. Sarah looked at Emily, remembering the moment Stone had threatened her child in this very spot. The wave of protectiveness she'd felt then, and still felt, ran deeper than any loyalty to a uniform or mission. "I did what any mother would do," she replied, "given the skills I have." Morgan gave a wry smile. "Still teaching at the middle school," Sarah nodded. "I have a stack of essays waiting for me at home. It's going to be nice to grade them in peace." As the detective wandered off, Emily waved from the swing. "Calling Mom, watch me." Sarah returned the wave with a radiant smile. She felt the sniper's calm recede, replaced by the gentle contentment of a mother who could finally breathe. Emily soared on the swing. Carefree once more, Sarah leaned back, letting the warm autumn sun wash over her. In that moment, the quiet reaffirmed what she'd fought for: a sense of normalcy, of a future for Emily untouched by fear. No matter how many hidden threats lurked in the world, Sarah Walker knew one thing for sure. If danger ever returned, she was ready, because for her daughter and for the town that embraced them, she would stand between darkness and light, unwavering every single time. In the end, Hannah Anderson didn't just defeat the Dark Knights. She exposed decades of hidden corruption, proving that even the most dangerous threats crumble in the face of truth and courage. Eagles Point emerged stronger, united by the bravery of an ordinary woman with extraordinary resolve. As Hannah embraced Sophie, she knew she'd given her daughter more than safety. She'd taught her the true meaning of strength. Now we'd love to hear your thoughts. How did you feel when Hannah revealed her hidden skills? Would you have done anything differently? Leave a comment below and join the discussion. And don't forget subscribing. Helps us bring more powerful stories your way. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next adventure.